everybody. I'd just like to thank you all for coming for the last 3 days. This has been truly a seminal moment in the ability of this group and, frankly, society to start to achieve Ship Zero. I want to thank everyone for their speeches and their contributions to the panels, and everybody that helped organize the event, bring it all together and make sure everything went smoothly. You guys did a fantastic job. This has been a really excellent conference, and I've really enjoyed participating in it and sponsoring it. In closing this, what I'd like to do to start with is I'm going to say something to everyone in this room that I bring home to my staff all the time. We deal in a business that has been a very long road to bring energy storage into the mainstream of the solution of what we do. And the only word in our company that nobody is allowed to say out loud is hopefully. I learned a long time ago that hopefully means I'm going to let you down. So in our business, we promote accountability and we promote positive action. So nobody in our company is allowed to say hopefully out loud. I've said it 3 times today, and if they get a picture of this, they'll laugh until they cry, but they understand the whole purpose. So what I'd like everyone in this room to do is take home all of the messages and lessons we've had from the last few days, and don't treat anything like it's hopeful, because it's not. We have within us the capacity to execute and solve this problem. The tools exist today. The people in this room are proof that this can be done. So instead of saying hopefully, say I'm doing this now. So that's the message I'd like to get across. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming for this. In closing, we're going to ask some people who've been participant of this conference to just stand up and speak to what their impression was of the last few days. And then Madadh is going to come up and give her closing remarks, and we'll close this out. Do we have a microphone, Madadh? That would be good. So the first person I'm going to ask to speak, and if she doesn't have a microphone, perhaps he can join me here. Oh, we're good. Is Nick Brown from BV.
Thanks, Brent and Madadh, for ambushing me. I'll be really quick. You've seen enough of me today. I just wanted to say that last panel was great. Dwayne moderated that beautifully. And actually what you said, yeah, exactly. Big hand for Dwayne. I thought that was really fantastic. And the panelists were super as well. And what you said, Dwayne, I wrote it down. You know, you summarized, I think, a lot of the things we've been thinking about and saying, whilst I'm still thinking about an Arctic octopus as well. And that's a good phrase. Shipping is key to decarbonizing the world. Transparency with the new currency, and we need bigger carrots and sticks. You know, I think we've heard that in varying different ways. You summarized it really well in the 3 days we've been here. Thanks, obviously, to Madadh and Brent and everyone who made this possible, all the speakers. I think the other thing I just want to say I feel about this is that having been to lots of shipping events, you know, over decades, this one, it does feel quite different. The mixture of people here, you know, dare I say it, diversity, youth, great to see you guys here. And I think that is new and fresh, and I've really enjoyed that, and being here and meeting new people. So thank you.
The next person I'd like to ask to make some comments is someone who's not from this space. So effectively came into this conference from the outside and took some time to get to know us. And I'd like to find out what his impressions were. Stuart?
Hi. I'm only sorry I haven't had a chance to speak to more people directly, although those who've spoken to me at any length are probably going to commiserate with each other afterwards. My impression, many years ago, I blundered into hedge funds for the first time without realizing what I was walking into. It turned out to be the best move professionally that I ever made in my life, as well as experientially, but it was a complete accident. Kind of like three weeks ago meeting Maddie, in Geneva and suddenly finding myself here. And as I said yesterday, having to spend 3 weeks reading up desperately about what you all have been talking about so that I wouldn't make too much of a fool of myself if we had a conversation. My impressions are really a marriage of the two of those things. Honestly, from the outside, I chair a lot of conferences. I moderate at a lot of conferences as well in other spheres. It's a long time since I came into an event like this, where there was such a sense of quiet excitement evident amongst so many of the participants. I hadn't realized that this is perhaps the first time that so many of the people who do matter in this sphere are coming together. And it's the first time that many of you have actually had this sort of conversation. The conversation itself, I have to say that I know that there is a discrete, a specific objective that Maddie and everyone else has got in mind for this. But what a disparate set of topics, what a disparate set of views there have been. Just take fuels, for example. I've heard every single fuel option that's on the table or in people's mind's eye described either as the good Lord above or the devil, depending on who I've spoken to. That's just one example. The mix between public and private, the mix between carrot and stick. The challenge with all of that, I mean, it's a real source of strength because that diversity of views builds it, means there's a certain built-in redundancy to the discourse around achieving net zero, or not net zero, absolute zero emissions. I'm so sorry. That's a source of strength. But in the end, your challenge, you're the people who matter to this, is to get it across to the multilaterals, the policymakers, the think tanks, and the governments, and the companies, the corporate actors within this space, how very urgent it is not to procrastinate, prevaricate, or to delay. Even the man from the IMO commendably characterized the situation as a crisis. And a crisis means you must act. You don't have 5 years to get your act together in terms of what message it is you want to project. So the urgency is there, and I would hope that something concrete comes out of today. Gosh, I've spoken for too long, but thank you for having me, everyone.
Thanks very much, Stuart. Next, I'd like to ask Jimmy from the Solomons to speak on what he thinks the conference achieved.
Thank you, Madadh, for putting me on the spot. But no, thank you, and I would like to thank the organizers of this event, also the sponsors, and for the invitation to be here. And I think I'm so honored to be among some of the brightest minds and people I know that who can help us to try and get to 1.5, or at least keep 1.5 alive. But just a takeaway for myself and others, and thank you, Michael, also for doing the presentation on our behalf. I think the technology is there. We can see that it's already there. And I think the finance is also available that we can tap. So I guess the only thing left is on the policy, I think, as mentioned by the previous speaker. I think those of us who are involved with the IMO, I think we need to raise our voice at the IMO and try and get the policy framework in place to try and get these technologies and the funding to come through and get us to the ambition that we want to get to. So thank you again for being part of this very, very insightful and interesting event today and the last couple of days. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jimmy. And the last comments, if I can have, from Michael Park.
I didn't really want to come to this conference. But the reason I came is I was born here just 65 years ago and left age 6 months, which is why I have mostly my own teeth. I'm sure the water in Glasgow has improved since, but it was a fact in those days that the water was so soft here that everyone had false teeth by about the age of 12. The other thing I'd like to say is, and to Nick's point, I also speak at many, many conferences. The first thing is there's more hair at this conference than most of the conferences I speak at. Two notable exceptions here. But also the conferences I often attend and speak at are very boring. This one wasn't. And I have an arts degree, so what I sort of realized, which is how Maddie really got to me, is that there's no point in having initiatives like the Poseidon Principles and all the other work we do in the GMF and the GTZ if you don't actually have some understanding of what the change is going to be. And what you didn't see, although there's a piece in Tradewinds today written by Julian Bray about one of the sessions we had at the GMF summit, and I referred to crazy people, and that was the word used by Laurence, I've forgotten his first name, Savarys of CMB, who is operating hydrogen-fueled vessels. So it is out there in the bigger world than some of the things you're talking about. And we also had Andrew Forrest, chairman of Fortescue, who has converted all his huge mining trucks to being hydrogen-fueled and has given instructions to his team that the 8 Cape-size bulk carriers they have should be retrofitted as soon as possible to carbon-neutral fuels. So it is going on out there in the big world. But what I learned a lot here. I met a lot of nice and very interesting people. And what I see I can try and help with is to try and make the connections between the new and maybe young, but they're not always young, obviously. The youth have no monopoly on bright ideas. But to bring you to the bigger participants in the industry who are always reluctant to change. And I think we will see in those announcements next week around green corridors and things that there are going to be really scaled up real projects where we need to make sure that what you're doing in this room is actually part of that and not sort of you're ignored by those big players. So part, I think, of my job, because it is the money that is also going to act as a lot of the glue here, is actually to make that happen and to bring the old and the new together. And I think that's what will help accelerate it. I also think, I mean, I see ZESTA got good publicity too in the press. I think you've started something, Maddie. It's only going to get bigger. And at some point in the future, you're going to have to keep to time.
So in closing, I'd like to thank everybody for coming, for your effort, for your participation. And now I'd like to introduce you to Madame MacLaine to bring the conference to a close. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. And here in Glasgow, we would say it takes a Maddie. So there you go. I'm your Maddie. A pure Maddie in the accent. So we've seen over the course of these 3 days that we have the technology. Finance is poised to support us. And now my question to all of you is, what are each one of you going to do within your sectors? And what are all of us going to do together going forward? As Michael said, this is the beginning. Today was just the start. This is a journey. I wanted to have a bit more time to work on the timeline and the roadmap, but we'll do that in emails and webinars. We'll meet again in 6 months. We've been invited to Greenland to hold a zero emissions. So how many wants to come to a zero emissions shipping event in Greenland? And this now becomes the path to COP27. So we are now working towards Ship Zero 27. I am very conscious of the fact that I haven't asked Camille from the IMO to say something. Camille, would you like to say something before we close? From the IMO perspective. Yeah, I think the highest regulatory body in shipping, and I feel I'm not able to close without turning the word to the IMO.
I hope you don't have too high expectations.
You're representing a very important organization.
No, yeah, I mean, many thanks for all your comments. I think it's been a constructive discussions. Having peaceful conversation about climate change is a real challenge. I mean, it's a lot about suffering of people. It's a serious issue, but it's also something that will clearly define the way our generation and the future generations actually live. And I have a little boy, a 2-year-old boy, and I often think about him when we're discussing about these issues. So no, once again, many thanks for inviting me. Sorry for not being able to join earlier in the week. I understand that you had very constructive discussions, but continue to keep the conversation going, to also bring these issues to the IMO and to your governments, because, well, these are the. I mean, we live in a world where climate change is addressed mostly in international forum through the government. So this is how it works. So I really encourage you, in parallel, of course, to all the initiatives that are taken in the industry, and this definitely go in a good direction. When I joined the IMO in 2017, and I really saw when the initial strategy was adopted in 2018, I really think it made a big change. And it was a signal sent to the industry, to the sector, and I'm actually really impressed and encouraged by all these initiatives that are taking place in this industry since then, and that continue that and that accelerate. So once again, continue the collaboration and the good cooperation, and well, looking forward to further discussions. Thank you.
And just a quick last word to thank our main sponsors, Bureau Veritas, and of course, Shift, Econowind, Unitrove, PowerCell, Negstack, Hexagon, Holder, and Sail Cargo for making this event happen. Yeah, we're actually overtime, and there's another event, so we've been given the bums rush. So we need to leave quite quickly. But I will be in touch with all of you and work together going forward, planning webinars. We've got the navigational Charter 2.0, which we'll be working over in the next couple of days, and also the white paper that we'll be working on over the next couple of days. That will come out to all of you. We'll want your input on that going forward, and we'll set up times to meet again and work together in time going forward. Thank you all so much.